fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery.
Well, welcome back into the House of Mystery. I'm Al Warren, and we got...
Do it, because I have something new to add.
Jennifer Burlesque Peaches Gordon.
Anne of Green Gables Peaches Steamer Gordon, yes.
Oh, there you go, Anne.
I know, it's like, the Anne of Green Gables will make sense, apparently.
Yeah.
Like, in a little while.
Yeah, in a little while. Well, yeah, well, maybe. For some it will, not for all.
Yeah, there are some non-Anne of Green Gables readers out there.
People that don't even know what that is.
Well, I could go on, but she is...
Yeah, she's waiting. So, well, let's welcome... We've got Rebecca
Cuthbert.
Now,
Great-grandniece of Matthew and Marilla Cuthbert, adopted parents of Anne of Green Gables. There we go.
There we go. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you so much. And everything Jennifer just said is true.
Well, there you go. Now we know.
Oh my gosh, Rebecca's the best guest we've ever had because nobody's ever come on and been like, anything Jennifer says is true.
Jennifer's right. Listen to Jennifer.
Listen to Jennifer. Also, nobody's ever said that.
Boy.
They should.
Jesus.
Oh, this is getting real.
This is getting real deep here. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
So Rebecca. So what's wrong with you? What happened? Who hurt you? Like,
Who hurt you? Why are you in the hospital of haunts?
Yeah,
What
brought you in there, and what story did you contribute?
Okay, so true story. I was not a part of this from the beginning.
Saboteur!
Yes. Totally lined it up. So someone had to drop out, too many obligations, and Heather Doherty messaged me and was like, hey, Rebecca, can you step in? And I was not going to tell her no. Like, they gave me a chance to write a ghost story set in an old hospital. So I was like, yes, I will do this. And I wrote my story in like 4 days, which for me...
Now she's just showing off.
It wasn't perfect, but like I had a full draft and it was way too long. I knew it was way too long, but I sent it to Heather and she sent it back with a bunch of revisions. So I spent like another 2 days just at the computer. You know, and she did say, like, this is one of the longest stories in the collection. And I didn't mean for that to happen. It just got really, I don't want to say complicated, but it got complex because I was working with 2 different timelines. So I kind of had 2 stories going, and it was a lot. It was a lot to get down.
I get it. I feel like I'm the queen of a 12,000-word short story, and people are like, that is not a short story.
Yeah, I did not know, but, like, when you're much past 8,000, you're getting into novelette territory.
Yep.
And I accidentally made Heather put a novelette into Hospital of Haunts.
Well, it's your fault.
Mm-hmm.
No wonder the book is so thick and heavy.
Yeah, that's like a good 10% my fault, mine alone.
You know, I will say, so I am also in Hospital of Haunts, but my story is not that long. But I feel like for House of Haunts, I was in that. I in my head, as I was writing it, thought the word count for the call was much higher. And I'm like, oh, perfect. This can be this many thousand words. And then I like went back and looked and I'm like, oh, how do I cut this in half?
Yeah. I knew it was 6,000 cap and it was a little over 6,000, but I was like, oh, it's fine because Heather's going to tell me what I don't need and I'll trim it down. But then when she came back to me with revisions, it was mostly stuff I had to add. And then I was like,
right.
Oh,
She's
no.
like, I need everything.
And I sailed past 8,000 and I was like, I'm going to be in so much trouble. But I sent it anyway.
See, and I don't have anything in there because nobody asked.
Maybe next time, Alan.
Maybe next
No.
time. Well, so next time is Hotel of Haunts. Yeah. I know Alan's like, no, I don't write short fiction.
Yeah.
But what if
not
we
in a hotel?
asked?
Things I did in a hotel you couldn't write. That's disgusting.
Right, that's a different category of book.
Yeah. What's your favorite part in writing a short story? Like what was good for you, or semi-short?
Truthfully, I love research, and so I have so much fun just like looking things up and pulling them together, and like making it all fit. And so I loved researching old medical treatment stuff because the earlier part of my story is set in 1920, and my ward is the respiratory ward. So I just looked up so much about breathing treatments in 1920 and like what was cutting edge in 1920, what would a nurse wear in 1920, what would the hospital room look like, all of that stuff. And it was fun.
Well, if you wanted to know what a nurse wore, I have one of those outfits right here in 1920.
Yeah, it would have been very unsexy.
Yeah.
Ellen.
Well, yeah, of course. When you write a short story like this and you put it into a book like this, I always think of short stories as having a point, having a meaning. Wanting the reader to get something. It's not just a horror or scare fest. What is it you want people to get out of that story?
Well, it ended up being sort of a cold case mystery in a way, that a family member, 70 odd years later had to solve. And so for me, I got to work in really difficult family dynamics, and also defining what family is and can be, and also what it's not. So for me, it was a lot about unraveling those relationships. But
do you find that very draining? Like when you write a story like that?
No, I get all hyper. I get excited. I get excited about stories, like kind of gain momentum and energy as I go.
But that darkness, relationships is not just like horror, like, vampire and stuff. When you get into all that stuff, it doesn't affect you much.
Well, I think, oh, how sad, and sometimes things I have written have made me cry as if they are real people going through these things. But I don't think this one made me cry, but it did make me quite sad, But I don't stay in that space. If I write something dark, I go and I do something else that is a sort of palate cleanser from that dark mood or from that horror or from that cruelty in some cases.
Do you have the same attachment with your characters in short stories than you do in a full book?
Not all of them, but there are some of them that I end up having a soft spot for. And often the ones that I have a soft spot for are the ones who I didn't think I would like in the first place. So they kind of end up being these underdogs for me. And then I'm like, oh, like you poor thing, One of my favorite characters, I started to write him to be this utter loser in a short story called Bargain at Twice the Price, which is coming out from Water Tower Hill Publishing in January of 2025 in a collection called 6 O'Clock House and Other Strange Tales. And I created this character and I was like, he is such a loser. And I just ended up having such affection for him. And I still do.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
And that's just a short story.
Do you ever have like side characters that just take over a story?
Yes.
Is that
Yes. And it's usually the side characters that I end up kind of basing on someone I know.
Oh, and then it gets awkward.
Well, it gets like funny. I don't know. Another story of that same collection is called Hey Stranger, and there is an old man in that story. And I ended up very much basing him on my father. So he's not the protagonist, but for me it's that's his story, even though he is a secondary character.
Has your family read that story?
No, but
is that me?
Not yet, but I know if any of my siblings read it, they would immediately recognize.
That's Dad.
Yeah, they would immediately recognize my dad, and I wouldn't be scared of him reading it. I think that figure is painted affectionately, but he is this quirky old man. So down to the plaid jacket and driftwood cane, Butch is my dad.
Oh. Sounds like me.
I know. I was like, that could actually double as a really sexy phrase. Rebecca's like, please never say those words again.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say them, but not around me.
Yeah. La 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 la. That's not my father.
What's good horror for you? What do you find to be the best?
Okay, I got two for you. The first is dark, broody, gothic, atmospheric, slow, creeping dread horror.
Yes.
Which is, not
which
blood
is Jennifer and
I was going to say
Gordon's life story.
I was going to say that sounds like Jennifer.
Yeah, that's my favorite stuff. And when Heather and I first met, we found that we really loved a lot of the same stuff. And so that type of horror is definitely one of my favorites. And then I also found, accidentally sort of, that I love horror comedy.
Ooh.
Because I tried to write
like horror rom-com?
Yeah.
Like Lisa Frankenstein?
Kind of, like, and it's not always, the romance part isn't always there, but I did try to write a slasher story for a certain submissions call. I was like, I'm going to do this, like I never do blood and guts, but I'm going to do a slasher story. And so I set it in a flower shop, and,
As you do.
As you do. And I was like, I know
this is your screaming cozy horror right now.
Yes, and I used to work in a flower shop, so I kind of like, I could remember some of the details. And I had my little clippers, and I knew that those were going to be like my weapon of destruction for this guy. And it ended up being like a horror rom-com. Like no matter how hard I tried to write a slasher, it was going to end up horror comedy.
Yeah, I love that. Like, I've gone in thinking, I'm writing a rom-com, and then people are like, is this a 300-page book about grief? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know how that happened. It was supposed to be hilarious. And they're like, it's not hilarious.
Yeah. Well, and people don't always, pick up what you're putting down. And that's
I don't think I was
okay.
putting down hilarious.
Yeah.
But do you find getting specific calls for things to be weirdly inspirational for you, like a writing prompt?
I love it, and I love it even if that particular publisher doesn't accept it. Because everything I have ever written for a particular call has found a home, whether it was that call or elsewhere. So at some point it's like they just give you this jumping off point. There was a winter horror submissions call, and I was like, I don't know why, but I was like, I'm gonna set something in a fictionalized Canada. And so I looked up all this stuff. I got it all
Canada?
Canadian slang, and what is the weather like, off the northeast coast of Canada. Just I called it fjord horror, which is ridiculous, but then another friend said that they had fjord horror, so fjord horror is totally a subgenre. But anyway, so I wrote this story, and I love this story, and it is not, it's not necessarily what I thought it was going to be. It's not at all funny. It is definitely winter set, and it is going into another collection. It was not accepted by that call, but I ended up really loving the story.
No, I love that. There have been times, even for me, I very rarely write short stories because I write them at 12,000 words, and that's a problem. Mm-hmm. But I do love hearing short story calls because I feel like some of my best shorter work has been for things like this that didn't get accepted because they're like, this is not what we meant by werewolf. Or, and I'm like, okay. Yep. But they end up, I just think there's such great inspiration for writers.
They are, because sometimes that's all you need is a shove, just shove me in a direction.
A shove and a deadline.
Yeah. And I will get it done.
Finish it in a month.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it sometimes ends up in a different place from where you started, but it always ends up being something, I have very few just dead end stories in cold storage. I have a few, and I'll come back to them at some point, but I feel like if you start something with a prompt, many times or most times you will finish it and find it a home somewhere.
Is there anything you're scared to write, whether that be in horror or a specific genre that you're just I'm really intimidated by cozy mysteries or, whatever?
For me, and I don't know if the reluctance is just I don't read a lot of this or I don't particularly like this genre, subgenre. I don't really write sci-fi and I don't really write sci-fi horror. And so I avoid those calls, and it would be really tough if someone invited me to a call with sci-fi or sci-fi horror and they were like, will you write a story? And of course I would want to say yes, but I don't know if I could because it's just not my thing.
I think you could say yes and then immediately do gothic sci-fi and be Victorian science. There's always a way to get around it.
I'm going to put a robot in it, but it's going to be comedy horror. And someone's going to slip in a pile of blood on a banana peel, and it'll end up being what it is.
The Canadian robot.
A Canadian, the robot is from Canada.
Yes.
It was an extra in Degrassi Junior High.
He was from a small town near a fjord.
Well, yeah. What else would be there?
What else do they have in Canada? They got fjords. That's
Yeah.
it.
They have robots.
They got hockey.
They have maple trees.
Mm-hmm.
Maple syrup.
They have Allen. They have good healthcare.
They do have good health care.
Well, there you go. What else is there?
I know now I'm just like, can we write that story?
Moose. They have moose.
Moose.
Yeah.
And you use your moose antlers to get streaming television.
Yeah.
You know that?
Yeah.
So, Rebecca, what's next for you?
I have a children's horror picture book coming out next month, November 12th. And so that is a new thing for me. Be my first children's book.
Did you do the art as well?
I did not, but my illustrator is a past student of mine. So I teach creative writing at my local SUNY university, and we needed an illustrator who could do creepy stuff because our book is not cute. Like, it's not Monsters, Inc. cute. It's like actually scary. We wanted to do actually scary stuff for kids. And so I thought of this student I had, Dakota Markhart, who I was still in touch with via social media, and I reached out to her, and I was like, Dakota, how do you feel about messed up children's books? And she was like, I'm in. And it kind of grew from there, and now she and I together are on a 4-book contract with Malediction through AEA Press. So Down in the Dark Deep, Where the Puddlers Dwell, will be out November 12th.
And what age range is this for?
3 to 10.
Wow.
It's for little kids.
No, I love that because you don't hear about horror being for that little kids.
That's what we're like. There's not enough of
I
it.
like that.
Yeah, we wanted them to have more, and so this book is sort of monster focused, and then next year's title is High Up on Witch Mountain, and that is about witches, of course. We hope kids will like them. We hope parents will like them because we can't get buy-in from kids if their parents say no.
Well, how far do you go then with horror? Like, what can people expect in something like that?
Nothing graphic, like nothing graphically described. We're not going to put blood and guts in an illustration for kids, So even though there's scary stuff happening, it's not going to be happening on the page the way it might be happening on the page in, an adult book.
Right. So there's not a lot of violence.
I mean, there's implied.
Implied.
It's
but
implied.
You're not describing like
No.
the acts and stuff
No.
like that. It's more.
The
it's more,
axe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
we are
act
not.
one.
We are not describing anything graphically. So
No, I think this is so interesting. Like, I've just never really thought about horror as for ages, like the age 3.
yeah.
But I have a lot of friends who have children who love horror, and they're like, there's just not horror for little kids.
Yeah. No, you can't.
And,
I think-
but they've never said 3. They were always like, 6 to 10.
Yeah.
But-
Well, they can read it too. But yeah, when you try to find it, because of course, like we wanted to know what else was out there because there's not a lot, so it was hard to even find anything, because when you search it, you're going to get things like the vampire counts with you. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, we want scary stories. So we don't have a lot of company out there. And hopefully that will be to our advantage. Maybe we'll kick off a fun trend.
That would be a
Vampire
great trend.
Counts how many they kill with you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you get into the headset of your characters in a case like that?
Oh, in like a little kid's book?
Yeah, yes, it's because it's got to be different than when you're writing an adult horror. Let's say, what you're thinking and doing, and how you're writing the character and how you feel and all that. What's the characters in this?
Yes and no, in a way, because as far as like I'm super into setting, like really into place, really into atmosphere, and that's going to be the same in a kid's book as it is in an adult's book. However, more of that responsibility is transferred to the illustrator in a kid's book. Like I keep saying that Dakota is doing all the hard work for this book, she's the one who is creating the landscapes. So in that way, it's similar for me, but I do have to think of like what is scary for an adult versus what is scary for a kid, how far to take it, like going back to what can you describe and what should you leave kind of off the page. What can you leave up to implication? Because we do want older people to be able to enjoy these too. Like my hope is that with the Puddlers, it's a book that parents like reading to their kids because they're enjoying the illustrations, because we went with a 1960s, 70s Hanna-Barbera Scooby-Doo look for the artwork. So we really wanted that vintage aesthetic that the parents might enjoy. And then a story that would be fun for them and for the kids.
Do you put humor in this one as well, too? Do you kind of have a humorous side, or no?
This one's not really funny.
No. Well, I just thought maybe
I feel like that makes me love it even more.
Yeah. Well, because the humor, I guess, in your more adult, let's say, book would, the humor's more, it's not so much a joke sort of thing, it's more implied. You know
yeah, and it's like a lot of the stuff in what is funny to me in my adult comedy horror is like there's a lot of vulgarity, and there are people like actually slipping in puddles of blood, and there are people who start crying and end up laughing, and there are people who are like trading zingers with each other, and so that's not anything I'm going to put in a kid's book.
Oh, why not? Kids slipping in blood? That could be kind of fun.
I was looking for the falling down in the puddle.
Yeah. Well, listen, so let's talk about where people can find you. Where do they find you? Do you have social media? Do you have website? Do you have like a lemonade stand? How do people find you?
I'm all over the place. I do have a website. It is just my name. It's RebeccaCuthbert.com. And then I am on Twitter at Rebecca J. Cuth. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Threads, but I keep forgetting to check Threads. I keep forgetting about Threads. I'm technically on LinkedIn, but I'm hardly ever actually on LinkedIn.
I feel like with Threads, if you post to Instagram, it goes there.
It does.
And then if you get somehow any interaction from Threads, your Instagram will tell you. That's how I've been dealing with that.
That's how you've been dealing with Threads. Yeah. There's like a new social media every day, and there's like pressure as a writer to like join all of them, but you just can't do that. You know, you can't post and engage with people on, 17 platforms. So
No.
Not while we're supposed to be writing.
no. So like mostly Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and then I've got the website for folks.
Well, we're going to put all that up on ours so people can find it real easily and stuff like that. And check out Rebecca Cuthbert and see what she's got going on. And of course, she's in the new Hospital Haunts. So out now. Thank you very much for being here.
And as of last night, a bestseller on Amazon.
Yeah.
Yes. So everybody, pick up a copy.
This has been a production of the House of Mystery Radio Show. To find out more about our show, guests, or hosts, go to our website at houseofmysteryradio.com.